Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wishwell Farms. We just finished loading our final greenhouse plants for 2025. And I'm backing up to the greenhouse right now, and we're gonna get them put into the coconut coir grow bags, and all 6 greenhouse plantings will be finished for 2025, and then we'll move into our outdoor plantings. So we have 3 rows left in here to plant. This row on the right is going to be our traditional greenhouse variety of indeterminate. We have 3 varieties: Geronimo, Torero, and Ondero. I wouldn't typically put an indeterminate tomato in here where we use the Florida weave, but since it's going to be a shorter harvest season for these indeterminates in here, we'll probably just top them when they reach the top of these T-posts. Actually, we put a PVC extension on so we can get them up to about 7 feet, and then we'll just top them. And by then, we'll probably be ready to move into our field production. These 2 rows over here are going to be determinate staking style tomatoes, the same as you would put out in your open field. That variety is Red Deuce. Typically, we'd like to have our transplants about twice this size. These Red Deuce tomatoes are a bit small, but since they're in these 4-inch rock wool cubes, they'll be totally fine. I was just getting tired of watering them in the greenhouse. Plus, it's time to just get them in here and get this done. I'm expecting these to start producing red tomatoes for harvest around mid-July, which is right when sweet corn season is kind of kicking off for us. And that will hopefully be about 3 weeks ahead of our field harvest. So I've shown this in several other videos in the past, but I'll demonstrate it again just in case you're new here. These are coconut coir grow bags. So it's like the husk and the core of coconuts. And it's widely used around the world as a growing medium for all sorts of plants and vegetables. So here's our rock wool block with a nice transplant in it. We're gonna set it right there in that square hole in the bag, and that's it. And then we'll come back through when we're finished, turn the water on, make sure there's no plugged drippers and everything's working, and we'll put the stake in right there like that, and that will keep the cube nice and moist as it gets established by shooting its roots down into the coconut coir. And then in about a week or 2, the roots will be down in that core, rooted in well, and once the plants reach about knee high, we'll run our first string trellis using the Florida weave to hold them up into place so they don't fall over. So one thing I'm making sure to do is to fluff up this core just a little bit in case it's packed down in there kind of tight. So I just squeeze the bag, it fluffs it up a little bit. That way we have good contact between the bottom of the cube where the roots are and the coconut coir. And we want to make sure there's no plastic underneath it, obviously. We want the entire surface area of the bottom of this cube to allow the roots to root into the core. All right, I'm now going to string up some of these grape tomatoes using the Florida weave. So we just tie it around our T-post with a double knot, and if you look down through here, you can see they're all about 6 to 8 inches apart. I think this is string number 6. We'll have number 7 up here, and then right behind you here, I got these PVC extensions. We will put these up on top, and they'll set on the top string like that. And we'll be able to do 1, 2, 3, possibly 3 more stringings to get those plants up to around 7 feet high, almost 7.5 feet. So the way we do this, if you're right-handed, you go around the row counterclockwise. So I'm gonna pull it down through here and make sure I capture this plant really good. Get to the next post. That's where I want it. And I'm not letting the plant dictate where my string goes. I want that a straight line from post to post, nice and taut. Taut. There's the right word. Wrap it around the post, come to the next post, So you can see I'm holding it with my right hand. I'm going to grab it with my left hand while keeping that tension on the string, and it frees up my right one to take the slack up and over the post. Off to the next one. Get the plants out of the way so I don't wrap them up into the post. Grab it with my left hand, keep it tight. My right hand is free to pull the string up and over the post. If you are interested in seeing more detail about the Florida weave, I have a dedicated video showcasing exactly how I do all this when these plants were much smaller and starting it out for the first stringing of the year. So I will link that down in the description box below for you if you want to check that out. All right, so since I ran out of coconut coir bags, I was about 3 short, I decided to use these mum pots from when we used to grow mums for about 10 years, maybe 8 years prior to 2024. So I filled them with our mum potting soil, and we're just going to stick these cubes right down in there, wiggle them down about halfway, and put the dripper stake in. Simple as that. So if these do well, I plan on doing this entire greenhouse this way next year. Maybe not with mum pots. I'll probably get a pot that's a little bigger, maybe closer to a 2-gallon size. And I will no longer be using rock wool. I'm thinking this is my final year using rock wool. I've been able to get away from using the starter cubes, the little 1.5-inch starter cube that goes inside this bigger block. These were just 50 count trays that we started these tomatoes in. And if I would have had all buckets out here, I would have just put these starter cubes right into these buckets. But since I had the coconut coir slabs with that 4-inch square cutout on top, you know, I pretty much had to use these little 4-inch cubes to place on top. So we'll see how they do. I'm kind of excited about not using rock wool next year and experimenting with something different. It's always fun experimenting on a farm a little bit. So long as you don't have all your eggs in one basket, nothing wrong with a little bit of experimentation. That way, if something flops or doesn't work out, you know, you don't lose everything. I know we're going to have a successful crop, Lord willing, on the rest of our hydroponic tomatoes and the other 3 greenhouses, including the grapes in here. Whew. It must be at least 75 outside, but in here it is every bit of 85. Wouldn't you think? Say, Emma? At least 85. It's miserable. So we finally got all of our greenhouse tomato work done, and now we're going to wrap things up this morning with yellow squash here, and Emma has 15 trays of zucchini over there. So our yellow squash and zucchini go in 72 count trays, 1 seed per cell. And we will plant these with a 1.5 foot spacing on a single row of plastic mulch on raised beds with trickle tape irrigation. I used to do 2 seeds per cell in a 50 count tray, but the 72s are so much easier to plant, and zucchini grow so quick. In 3 weeks, these things will be up like this and ready to put in the field. So I'll be glad to get this wrapped up so I can go inside and cool off, get some lunch, and still got quite a bit of work this afternoon. I'm not sure what I'm going to be getting into. Maybe spreading some ammonium sulfate, maybe doing some disking, but there's always something to do on the farm. After we seed them, take our packer tray, give them a good even pack, trying to get them down there about a 1/2 inch deep. Now they're ready to recover with germination mix onto the rack to get watered. They're all gonna go in that empty rack right behind the peppers.
I have 14.
All right, planting number 1 of zucchini and yellow squash is complete. Get them watered in good, and these things will pop up in just a couple days. Always amazes me at how fast zucchini and yellow squash germinate. Doesn't take much. Well, it's now 3 days later and the start of another week. Hope you all had a great weekend. Into our starter house, I see the zucchini is starting to pop. I can see some of the cells bulging a little bit. The seeds are getting ready to push through. So by the end of the day, they should be emerging. Probably not as far along as the cucumbers. Man, they came up great. And as you can see, I have some mouse traps set because I had a pesky mouse getting into my pollinator melons over here. And I haven't caught one, but I do notice I am missing a trap, and I've looked everywhere for it. So I must have some massive rogue mouse that carried off a mouse trap or something. I don't know where it's at, because I had 8 and there's only 7 here now. And I can't find it anywhere. The seeded watermelon came up great. These are the pollinators, and they're just starting to pop up. All right, we have a beautiful day on our hands. It's gonna be 75 degrees, fairly calm. Even though it's a bit chilly now, it's a great day to get some things done on the farm. And we're gonna start off with a little bit of greenhouse maintenance. Emma will be here in a little bit, as well as a new employee that is starting today. His name is Ken. I will try to get him on camera for you so you can meet him at some point this morning. And I'm heading down to my tomato cooler where I store all of our seeds. I'm gonna get our butternut squash and spaghetti squash out because we are seeding that today. If you're new to my channel, I store my seeds in a file cabinet to keep them away from mice. All right, we're looking for butternut and spaghetti. I don't think it's in that drawer. Maybe it's down here. There it is. All right, I'm gonna leave those in here. We'll seed those here in a couple hours. Winter squash, Quantum, butternut, Betternut 900, butternut, and spaghetti, which is Primavera, I believe. Yeah, Primavera. 24 trays. I just noticed my son Gavin is here today. That is good because today we have to lower our greenhouse number 1 tomatoes. They're about 7.5 feet tall. They're up to the cable trellis, and lowering is one of the hardest jobs. It's one of those jobs that you want to have help doing because it's such a stretch. So I'm glad he's here to help do that. And Ken, the new employee that will be here shortly, is about 6'3", so he'll be able to reach them even better than me. So glad to have their help today lowering tomatoes because I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. Probably won't be filming too much, but I definitely will get a little bit of a the greenhouse work that we're getting ready to start on right now, starting with pruning, suckers, fruit pruning, debranching, and then finally lowering the tomatoes. Once we get all of our greenhouse tomatoes maintained and taken care of, and our winter squash seeded and the employees leave, I will be heading out to plant another patch of sweet corn. Currently out here in greenhouse number 1, we have been doing all of our plant maintenance, sucker removal, fruit pruning, leaning and lowering, branch removal at the bottom of the plants, J-hooking. That's what these are. We're going to have to do some J-hooking still, and clipping. So we're doing the whole 9 yards today. I got Gavin back there doing some lowering. It's nice to have a tall guy in here helping. And speaking of tall guys, one of my new employees is starting today. His name is Ken. And I just finished showing Ken how to do everything in this row. He's catching on pretty quick. And since he's tall, he can lower these plants pretty good. So usually the lowering job falls on us taller guys that are 6 foot and taller. And I'm guessing Ken's around 6'3" at least. Yeah. So this is an easy task for him. So we're taking the hook off the cable, turning it half a turn, and sliding the plant into the location of the plant prior. He's doing a great job. If we get a plant that's really tall above the cables, we may do a full turn, but today we're just doing a half turn. This has to be done on every plant in every greenhouse every week. It's one of those jobs that most of the employees don't enjoy, but it's something that has to be done for hydroponic tomatoes. We're wrapping up the final rows of lowering and leaning. We got Ken on the left over here, doing a good job. Makes it easier when you're tall. And my son Gavin is a lowering machine. I'd put him up against anybody that leans and lowers in greenhouses. Almost 6'2"?
Yeah.
6'1.5"?
Something like that.
Definitely helps when you're taller. And he's got the long Wish arms. Flying right down the row. All right, as soon as we finish lowering these tomatoes, we're gonna finish clipping them up, and then we're gonna head over to the starter house to seed winter squash. And then after lunch, I'll go out and plant some sweet corn. Ken is seeding Butternut 900. Gavin is seeding Primavera Spaghetti. And Emma has Quantum Butternut. So after we put our seeds on top, we use a few extra inserts as our packer tray to get them packed down in there about a ½ inch deep. So that's what they look like after we pack them, and now we're ready to cover them again. Gavin, some of my YouTube subscribers have been waiting to see you.
Really?
Yeah. Pack it, sweep it, done. Got all the winter squash seeded, just getting it watered in, then time for lunch. Okay, I am out here ready to plant some sweet corn. It is the end of the day. It's actually like 6:30 p.m. I've been sicker than a dog all day since the employees left at 11:30. Actually, I was sick while they were here. It was miserable working in the greenhouses this morning. And after they left at 11:30, I went inside and laid down. I have not eaten anything all day. I had a root beer and a ginger ale mid-afternoon. It's like the only thing I could eat today. I think I got some kind of food poisoning or just some stomach flu that's going around. I don't know. No one else in my family has it. So I went kayaking yesterday and spent the night on the river. Done it dozens and dozens of times, but maybe I got some bad water. I remember having some sand in my food. One of my plate got some little pieces of grit, some sand in it. Maybe I got some unfiltered water and some nasty sand, and that is what made me sick. I don't know. But this taking everything I got to come out here and plant this corn. I got 1 acre here that's already been sprayed with a burn down and 28% nitrogen. I'm all hooked up, ready to go for my second planting of kickoff. So if you follow my channel, you know that our first planting is bolt in a kickoff. And I like to follow up with a second planting of kickoff about 10 days later than my first planting. So in the next video, I will show you the sweet corn. It has emerged. It's sprouted. You can see it in the field. But we're gonna wrap up this video today with some sweet corn planting, and then I'll show you that corn in the next video. The reason I do a follow-up planting of kickoff, well, several reasons. The main reason is just in case that first planting ends up being a bad stand, I'll have this one to fall back on. And the other reason is, what is the other reason? I can't think straight tonight, guys. Okay, to kind of close the gap between my early planting, my first planting, and my main season varieties that will be planted next week. About May 1 through May 5 is when I try to stick in my first planting of main season varieties. So we're only 3 or 4 days away from that, but this kickoff will beat those by a couple of days. So that's another reason I like to put those in here, just to make sure I got plenty of corn to fill that space between planting number 1 and our big planting number 1 in early May of our full season varieties. Guys, I apologize for sounding rough in this video. I'm gonna get her done though. That brings up another point I should mention. There's no sick days on the farm. Yes, I took the whole day off, but there's a chance of rain tomorrow, and I have to be out here planting this corn right now. If I miss this little dry weather window, I could be in big trouble. I'll get behind, and we're gonna have a gap in our sweet corn harvest. So critical, very critical to get this corn in right now. It just rained like 1 inch 3 days ago, and I can't believe it's dry already. We've had some sunny, windy weather. That really helps. So for this sweet corn planting, I'm gonna stick you up here on the roll bar of the tractor and put you on time lapse so you can watch me plant this 1 acre of ground with kickoff. I have 25,000 seeds left. It probably won't quite hold it all, but it'll take up most of it. Well, unfortunately, the time-lapse footage was not going well. Let me show you what's going on up here. I need to get something better than this. It's shaking and vibrating really bad. It was tilting forward. So I need an anti-vibration attachment up here and something that's fixed so the camera can't pivot as easy. So I'm just gonna hold the camera for you for at least one round. Starter fertilizer. I hopped off and stopped planting for a moment because I thought of a few things that many of you may have questions about. First of all, we plant on 30-inch rows. It's a pretty standard spacing for sweet corn and field corn, but it does vary some around the country. We plant in 24-row blocks, a minimum of 12, because my sprayer boom is a one-sided boom for spraying for corn earworms. It reaches out over 12 rows. So if I drive around my 24-row block, I can cover all of my sweet corn. So when I finish a 24-row block, which I just did, I'll show you how much I move over to leave a drive trail. So here's row number 1, or row number 24, or whatever you want to call it. And right here's the little marker arm trail that I normally follow right down the center of my tractor. So in order to leave one drive trail space, I'm getting over about 3 to 4 feet beyond that marker arm mark. And then there's the next row 1. It'll set down right there, and this will leave me just enough space for my tractor and my spray rig to go up and down the trails, as well as for harvesting corn. Because our first pass of harvest, we don't run over the corn, right? So we need a trail to drive up. We pick around the block, and then we start running over it as we move in to the interior of the block. We normally only pick our corn once. Early in the season, we might go into it 2 or 3 times and try not to run over it with our tractor and wagon, but once it almost starts getting ahead of us and we're struggling to keep up with corn, it's a one-pass deal. We pick it clean because they're all ripe, and we run over it as we go, and then a few weeks later we get it mowed down, and every 10 days I will be out here planting all the way until July 15th. That'll give me a fresh crop of sweet corn through the entire summer until frost, early to mid-October. Alrighty folks, another 1.25 acres of kickoff is in the ground, and I put it in at 22,000 seeds per acre if you were curious about the population. I would really like to go out and put a 1/2 acre of green beans in tonight because the forecast looks pretty favorable. So I'm pretty confident that they'll come right up, but I don't think I have it in me. So I'm hoping it doesn't rain tomorrow and I'll feel better and I can go out and plant green beans tomorrow. That'll be in the next video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I will see you all again next time down on the farm.